Hello and welcome. I'm going to try and make this video quick and clean so as to not waste your time. This is supposed to be a comprehensive item guide for beginners, and I'm going to show you how to set up auto buy as well to make the game a little bit easier. First things first, there's a learn how to play, which will walk you through anything you could need to know. This is where you play the game, but then we're going to go over here real quick. Now I'm going to put up on screen a tier list of characters that I think are ranging from easiest to hardest, with the top tier characters being just the easiest to learn. And I'm playing 7 because I think he's probably the easiest character in the game to learn. So when you walk through this hallway, it lets you use your abilities. I recommend if you're too lazy to read them, just give them a quick use so you can see them in action and kind of see what they do. And then from there, let's go straight into the build stuff. So to buy items, you press B. Now this is not what I want to show you. There we go. So this is the default 7 build. This default build is probably not the best. That's how it is on every character. In order to get good builds, you go to build browser and then you click public. And then these top dailies are the best builds daily. Now I'm going to show you how to use auto buy with these too. So let's click this one and then use select build in the bottom left. And once you do that, this build is a bad build to try to auto buy with. It might be a good build. I'm just saying if you want to use auto buy, this is bad. But I'm going to show you how to do it anyways. So you press Q build and it queues up the whole build. And then you just press auto buy. I can't do it in here because I'm not in the sandbox. Alright, in the sandbox area, it turns out I can't use auto buy here either, but I can still show you how to use it and how it's supposed to work. And this is the sandbox area if you're new to the game. But so anyways, the problem with this build is when I press Q build, it queues up all these items, which is perfect. That's what I want. But it won't queue up optionals, which is good most of the time. But on this build in particular, there's not a lot of late game items here. So this is actually not a great build to use with auto buy. Now the way you use auto buy is you Q build like I just did, and you can even select auto queue selected build at start of game. And then as soon as the game starts, it'll auto queue it and it'll auto buy them from left to right, the way you probably want it to go. Now as a new player, you're not going to know what any items do. This is just a nice way to jump into a game and have a more like casual fun start without worrying about how to buy items when you can. You just run to a shop whenever you have 800 souls, and you should be able to buy an item early game. As you get a little bit later, they tend to cost around 1600. And then there's some 800, 1600. So around there for the early game, the 800 and 1600 range. And then they start to cost 3200. So it's in multiples of 8. But so that's how you set up auto buy. Now let's look at builds that you actually want to use auto buy on. Like I said, this one's bad because a lot of these late game powerful items are in this optional area. And if you don't know what any item does in the game yet, and you don't want to read all this, then let's not start there. It's a bad start. So let's look for another build. Once again, you click build browser, go to public. Let's try Metro. This one looks a lot better because it's got an early game, it's got a mid game, and a late game. And then these situational and utility, which is more situational items, are in the optional category. So I can just press Q build and it'll auto buy all these items from left to right. And this is a more well-rounded late game build. And that's how you set up auto buy. Now every time I run to the shop, I'll auto buy the items. Now this obviously isn't going to tell you what the items do, but the idea is it just gives you a more like fun casual experience while you learn the mechanics of Deadlock itself. And then once you do know the mechanics of the game, then you can start to read like, hey, what does this item do specifically? I do wish this build had more annotations. That's something that's really nice about the previous build. Is it had annotations. So it would tell you what the point of these items are. Push faster. Gives you a really good surge uptime, which is one of your abilities, right? So those are two things you want. And if you find a build you like that you want to use, or like in this case, I want to use Metro build, but I want to read this guy's annotations on his items, then you can favorite them, and then you just go to build browser and it'll be in my builds. And so you select this one and you queue this build, and now you're good to go. And then if you want to read while you're playing, I believe you can just switch to this one. Yeah, and it still has, this is still Metro build queued up, but then I'm reading this guy's stuff. So I'm like, oh, I just bought Surge of Power. What does that do? Oh, big speed and big damage. Okay. But that's one way to use this auto build system while you're still learning the game. And that about covers just auto build and all that. Now I think I'm just going to go into some of the key active items, or like semi-active items in the game, to help you give a better understanding of those. Alright, let's start by talking about my favorite item in the game, Counterspell. Counterspell is not technically an active item, but it's so extremely conditional and it has a cooldown to the point where it might as well be an active item. Now the way Counterspell works, by pressing the parry button, you can parry any spell in the game, and that includes any negative effects caused by the spell. The only thing that doesn't apply to, I believe, is like Infernus's Afterburn, or like Viper's Lethal Venom application when she's shooting you later in the game. So basically any effects that apply on bullets, Counterspell will not parry, but it can parry like damaging effects. And most importantly, and the biggest use of it really, is it counters ultimates. So you can use it to counter Lash's ult, you can use it to counter Dorman's ult, you can use it to counter Wraith's ult. A lot of these really strong ultimates are really easy to counter using Counterspell. And some of the ones that are like pretty tricky to do, you can still like, you can counter Mo and Krill ultimate. If Mo and Krill is jumping in on you, like he gets really close, you can just preemptively counterspell. And there's a good chance that if it's not the best Mo Krill in the world, they'll probably waste their ult on you. There's also some harder ones like Shiv ult. If you're really good at reacting, you can react to Shiv ult and counterspell that. But you can also just counterspell key abilities like Bebop's Hook, for instance, or 7 Stuns, really easy to counterspell. But there's a flip side to counterspell where if you mess up the timing, now you're really vulnerable, and it itself won't go on cooldown if it doesn't counter anything, but parrying has a cooldown built in, and it's not cheap, so it is going to put you down on some souls, but it's a great item, and it's really good for new players to build it, because it's the answer to a lot of those like, well, how do you counter that type questions. Alright, and then the next item is Healing Right. Healing Right's 800 souls, and it just heals you. But notably with Healing Right, while it's healing you, if you take any damage, it'll cancel the effect completely, wasting the cooldown. The cooldown's pretty long too, so you do not want to waste it. So the way you use it is you can either push out the wave, and then grab Healing Right, and hide behind cover, and get a good amount of healing out of it. Or you can try to kill the enemies first, and then once they're dead, you can use it to like help you reset while farming and or pushing the Guardian. Alright, and then I'm also going to point out Warp Stone and Majestic Leap. These are 2 mobility active items that just give your character a dash. This is really important for a character like Dynamo, who I consider to be a good character for new players to pick up. But it's also just important on a lot of characters in the game. And you can generally just build it on anyone, honestly. Like, it's just a good dash ability. Majestic Leap is quite a bit more situational though, as you usually only want to use it on characters that want to engage. And I think that marks the end of my Deadlock auto build beginner's guide. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And tell me what you thought of the video. Bye!